thank you all for joining us today. Happy Thursday. My name is Jamie Terrell. I oversee the marketing here at Saltmarsh, Cleveland & Gund, and we are so excited to have you here with us for this webinar focused on a topic that has become increasingly important over the last several weeks. And so we here at Saltmarsh, like many of you, have had to adapt from our day-to-day interactions, which typically take place in an office, not for everyone, but for certainly a large majority of our employees and team members. And so we, like you, have really kind of had to look to technology as a way to change the ways that we can connect and engage with each other during this time. So we're very excited to have a member of our IT consulting team, Christopher Tenney, here. He is going to tell us a little bit about how we can use collaboration tools to really help us do this in a fairly seamless way. And so before we go ahead and kick it over to Chris, I want to run through just a couple quick housekeeping items. Quick note, the presentation today will be recorded. Each of you on the line today will receive a link to that recording, as well as a copy of the deck that Chris uses today. There will be some videos in there, so you'll be able to open those up and really walk them through on your own time. So that should be helpful. In the survey that you'll receive tomorrow as well, we'll have a very short survey. It really should only take about a minute to complete. Webinars for us, like many, are a relatively new way to provide education to our clients and friends. And so we're really testing this format out. We're looking for feedback, and we hope that you'll take just a few minutes to share with us your experience today, what you thought. We will be monitoring our chat. You should have a window on your screen that will take you to the chat. It looks like a little conversation bubble. If you click on that, put your question in during our presentation. I'll be looking through that, and then we'll cover any questions during our question and answer portion at the end. With that, I'm going to go ahead and kick it over to our speaker for this afternoon, Mr. Christopher Tenney. Chris.
Thank you, Jamie. Welcome everybody to the presentation here. As Jamie stated, we're going to be speaking briefly on some techniques and strategies that we can use here to stay connected and empowering our team in a remote work environment. Over the past 45 days, we've all been kind of thrust into this new environment here. Some are adjusting better than others. So we'll take a look at a couple of techniques that we can use here, some of the available tools that we have at our disposal to make that adjustment a little bit easier for everyone. I'm Christopher Tenney. I'm a senior technology consultant here at Saltmarsh, Cleveland & Gund. Just started at the beginning of the year. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get it started. A little bit about us first. Who is Saltmarsh, Cleveland & Gund? We're one of the biggest firms in the Southeast here, over 150 strong, 4 locations in Florida, 1 in Nashville, remote workers all over the US, a couple in Europe as well. We're a group of audit and assurance professionals, CPAs, accountants, and also managed service providers for your IT needs as well, so keep us in mind. So let's go and get started here, talk about the objectives. First off, let's discuss how we're going to work efficiently as a remote team. Like I said, over the past 45 days, we've been thrust into this whole new business model, some of which have been more prepared than others here. Luckily for Saltmarsh, we had a pretty robust remote infrastructure in place already. That's not been the case for many users here and organizations as well. So we'll discuss some of the tools that may be available for us at our disposal, and also what we can do to keep the costs down a little bit too here as well. We'll talk about breaking the dependency on the traditional infrastructure, that office infrastructure. No longer are we in the 4 walls of our office here. So how do we maintain contact with our clients, our coworkers as well? How do we keep touching base with these folks? And let's also talk about the virtual tools to connect with our teams and clients too. It's very important that we keep in touch with everybody, our customers and our end users here. When things do go back to normal, that's going to weigh on their mind as well. So, it's going to help out with referrals for those you business-minded folks out there. And also they're going to remember that we kept in touch when we were all locked down here. We were there when they needed us. So let's use the tools at our disposal here to make this weird experience a little bit better for everybody. And let's leverage technology to keep productive here during this lockdown as well. There's a lot of tools that are available out there. We're going to focus on the Microsoft Office suite a little bit heavier than most, mainly because the popularity of the suite. That's what Saltmarsh uses as well. And also the cost and the scalability as well. So it's geared towards the small, medium business. It's also scalable for the enterprise folks as well there. One of the big ones here, How are we going to access and share documents securely outside the office? It's the utmost importance that we keep our clients' information and our internal information, maintain that confidentiality, that integrity as well. And also, we're going to end on security and how to maintain that security posture at home. So, touch real briefly here on adjusting to a remote work environment. I'm not a huge fan of working remotely. I like to have that distinction. So one of the biggest things that you can do is define your actual remote work area while you're at home. So if you can, try to designate an area, whether it be an office, an extra bedroom, where you're going to do your work. We're all guilty of answering a couple extra phone calls or shooting a text message here or there, but try to keep the majority of that work in that office to maintain that home life balance, which brings me to the next point, finding your balance. One of the big things that you can do is try to keep that normalcy that you're used to working in the office. If you used your drive home from work every day as something to help decompress, listen to some music, do that at the end of your workday at home, drive around the neighborhood. Anything that's going to help maintain that normalcy. And also time management. Let's talk about setting a designated start and stop time here. Schedule a time to eat lunch. Take a break. The last thing you want to do is show back up at the office burn out from working remotely here. So let's make sure we can hit the ground running when we get back in the office here. So let's talk about leveraging technologies here. The main ones that we're going to focus on is what's available in that Microsoft Office suite. Big ones we're going to touch on today are going to be Teams, OneDrive, and SharePoint, and also going to touch a little bit on Outlook, how we're going to actually integrate into Outlook here. Most folks, whether you use Gmail, whatever it might be, you're going to be familiar with Outlook. Teams, OneDrive, and SharePoint, totally different monsters here. This is going to be a very high level overview of these actual applications here. I'm not going to get more into the weeds, but we will show some of the methods that you can actually collaborate with your coworkers here. Biggest thing I want to focus on though is let's use what's available here. Like I said earlier, we adjusted to a remote work environment pretty impromptu here. So over the course of a week, a lot of organizations had to set up a remote work environment. Big things there. There's a lot of costs involved with that. You have to have the experience on how to set up those remote desktop services and whatnot. If you don't, that adjustment's going to be very difficult. And also training your end users how to actually connect to resources securely. So the big thing we want to focus on is let's offset those costs actually using cloud software rather than hardware that we have available here. Most of these things we're going to talk about today, if you have an Office 365 mailbox and the Office suite available for you, you're likely going to have these applications here already available with your licensing. One of the big ones that I really want to touch on, and you IT folks out there are probably going to appreciate this a little bit more, is the centralized administration and the security of these applications here. What that means is that we're able to actually configure these applications for our end users from a central admin portal at portal.office.com. So we can make configuration changes on the fly. There's no expensive hardware upkeep. Most folks can learn this stuff just through forums online and a little bit of experience. So no longer do you have to have these highly skilled technicians maintaining and patching hardware. You also get to enjoy the redundancy of the Microsoft infrastructure. If something fails, there's always going to be a failover available. In my years as an IT professional, I've never seen the entire Microsoft suite totally down. I've seen portions of it down, whether it be Exchange or Teams functionality, but I've never seen the actual whole Office 365 actually totally go down. So high level redundancy there, high level of reliability and availability for our end users here. So a lot of uptime. And also you get to skirt the line a little bit of business continuity and disaster recovery there too. So all that rolled into one there, and it's pretty economically sound as well. So not a lot of configuration either. Another great thing is it's going to interact seamlessly with the majority of the other Office apps. So you don't have to go through, learn 20 different applications. Everything's going to be pretty much available, containerized within the same applications here, as you'll see through a couple of the videos we have here. What this is going to allow us to do is motivate our end users and our clientele and our customers to innovate. Let's give them the tools to succeed here. It's no doubt that they've been thrust into this strange environment. Many of them never worked remotely before. It's even more difficult now that schools are closed, so you get your kids running around too while you're working remotely here. So let's give them the tools to succeed, what's available there, and let's make it easy on them. And we'll take a look here. I got some videos put together that we're going to watch, and I'll actually narrate over them. Like I said, very high level fly through here, so we'll be looking down from about 30,000 feet. Not going to be in the weeds at all with it. So if we have any questions, you can direct those to Jamie in the actual chat there, and I'll do my best to reach out to you individually or answer them here. First one we're going to touch on is Microsoft Teams. Big thing here is communication is key. If that communication breaks down, everything else is going to break down here. So we're going to focus on a little bit of the actual Teams interface, the channels, the calling features, meetings, and chats as well. So let's go and jump on in here. We got a short video we're going to watch. Now, if you have a Windows 10 machine, you're going to have Teams already installed on there very likely. If not, it can be installed from the portal at portal.office.com. The interface on the left here, a couple of tabs. As you can see, the activity tab, just a running tally of what's been going on in the team since you stepped away. If you've been in a meeting for a couple hours, very useful to take a look and see what's been going on there. File uploads, people mentioning you specifically as well. Next one we'll take a look at here is chat. Very useful feature, can be used to whatever extent that you want to be used here. The great thing about the Microsoft Teams application is that it's very consistent across the board here. So what you see right here is my client-side Teams application. There is a web-based version as well that we actually use on RDS, and there's also a mobile application as well, which they look all very similar across the board there, which is nice. So the chat there, I just asked myself, how's my presentation going? I said, so far, so good. Looks like I need some reaffirmation here. I'm going to go ahead and upload a GIF here. So as you can see, you can drop GIFs in there, videos, pictures from your camera roll, whatever it may be, just as easy as dragging and dropping, popping a message there. It stays in the history. It helps keep the conversation a little bit lighthearted if you want, but it's pretty seamless across the board there. A lot of fun to use here. And actually, depending on your administration, there's a preloaded set of GIFs that you can actually put in there that is continually uploaded as well here. Now, really getting into the groundwork of Teams here is the actual Teams functionality. What we're looking at here is the remote workers group. I actually went in SharePoint and created a team site, which in turn creates a Microsoft team for us. So there's my remote workers group. And what I'm clicking on now is our actual channels, broken down geographically. We got Nashville, Pensacola, and Tampa. And what we also can incorporate here is our actual Microsoft OneNote notebook. For those of you that don't use OneNote, it's a great feature, usually associated, no cost associated with that. It's something great that you can use, especially in this Teams setting here, to help your team kind of collaborate, keep a running tally of what's going on here, put tips and tricks in there, brainstorming. Everybody can contribute to it, and collaboration is really the key word here. I use mine as kind of a de facto password manager, not the best practice by any means, but you can actually password protect your actual OneNote notebook. Taking a look here at the Teams calendar, which is probably going to be the most useful aspect here while working remotely. I know we had a couple questions about the actual video conferencing feature here. It's super easy. Simply click on the Teams calendar, fill out the required information here, invite your attendees, put in a message if you like, set the time, and send that invitation out for them. They get a notification pretty much across the board, pops in on their mobile device. Cool thing too is they can actually join from their mobile device too. They don't have to be sitting in front of a machine here to actually join that meeting. As you can see, it populated on my calendar here, but I used the actual Meet Now functionality here to go ahead and start a meeting. As you can see, broadcasting the video here, haven't started the meeting just yet. So as you can see, full screen. Video quality is actually pretty good with Microsoft Teams here. The sound quality is really well too. I'm sitting in my living room, haven't cleaned the house in a little bit. So I'm gonna go ahead and blur my background here. It's also useful if you're in a coffee shop or something with a lot of distractions in the background here. You can use this to cut that down. Or you can go the total opposite direction, be totally distracting. Go to outer space here if you'd like. There's a bunch of preloaded actual backgrounds here, very similar to Zoom meetings, if you're familiar with that application at all. One thing that Teams has incorporated is the ability for you to create your own custom background, actually. And I'll go ahead and show you the file path here, where you're going to place your images, whatever you'd like, to upload those custom backgrounds here. So as you can see on the screen right there, I'm highlighting, that's the file path we're going to put those actual pictures at. We'll make sure everybody gets that. We'll disseminate that information here, whether it be through an email or in the chat, whatever it might be. Simply just drag and drop your picture in there, whatever you want it to be. Open your Teams application back up. reopen the background effects menu here. My custom image should be waiting for me at the bottom here. So as you can see, I'm going to go ahead and load that up, apply to that, and now I'm broadcasting from underwater. It really helps to drop into a meeting, break the monotony a little bit. A really good icebreaker if you're meeting with a client, depending on how professional you want to keep it. So I'm going to go ahead and try to give myself a call here and invite myself to the actual meeting. So as you can see, it's very simple to actually invite users and attendees using the Meet Now function. Simply punch into the actual search, and it's going to search through your actual organization's global address list and Teams users there, so you don't have to know the exact name. Also, if you have contacts in there that you've already added, you can pop those in there too. We'll take a look at the calling features available in Teams. Of course, you can have speed dial for users that you frequently contact. I'm going to have your contacts here. That's self-explanatory. Anybody that's added to your kind of virtual Rolodex there, your history of calls, and your voicemail. The voicemail feature is actually pretty cool. It actually transcribes what's in the voicemail there, and it actually works really well. Very few typos, and actually works pretty seamlessly. And what we have here is the files. As you can see, these are actually documents that I've uploaded through Teams, available in my Teams SharePoint site as well. And also you can pull them up from OneDrive. So wherever you have attached to your OneDrive, you can put in Teams as well. Now, if you're asking yourself, what if I don't use OneDrive? This is actually, there's an API on the back end here for Teams that allows it to interface with all the big boys. So you got Dropbox, Box, Share a File, and Google Drive as well. So end users and customers and things like that that are no longer or don't use the Microsoft Office suite, you can still pull from your other online storage locations, cloud locations there. So let's go and take a look here. We're going to go ahead and keep moving forward. So Microsoft Teams integration. Teams is virtually integrated into every aspect of the Microsoft Office suite and that's exactly what their intention was. They want to make this a central location, a hub for collaboration for folks so that, like I said, you can cut down on the end user training, cut down on the configuration, centralized security, centralized administration. And you kind of roll on the fly. Everybody can, depending on what your organizational needs are, you can modify this pretty heavily, but the out of the box actual application, very capable and can suffice probably 85% of organizations' needs right off the bat with very little configuration. So we're going to go ahead and step into OneDrive here a little bit. We haven't spoke about SharePoint just yet, but OneDrive is going to be considered your personal SharePoint. It's a secure cloud-based storage. So let's go ahead and take a look here, and I'll show you how to actually configure your OneDrive and show you some of the collaboration features and how to share documents. Again, if you have a Windows 10 machine, your OneDrive sync client comes preloaded on the machine for you. So there's no need to actually go download another application here. It's located in the hidden icons tray, the little cloud. If you don't have that, you can simply type in your Windows search OneDrive and it should pull up the application for you. If for whatever reason it's not available, this can be downloaded from the portal as well at no cost. Your machine will come preloaded with a personal OneDrive that's going to be associated with a Outlook.com or a Live.com address. What we're looking at today is our OneDrive for Business account actually here. So our business documents are going to be placed here and whatnot. But what that does as well is that allows your organization administration to more stringently control access and your sharing, so external users and things like that. Since there can be some sensitive data in there, we want to be able to make sure that this is controlled properly. Your storage location is going to be placed right in your file explorer here, so super easy access. Now, when you set this up initially, you won't get that notification. I've configured my OneDrive on here previously and reconfiguring it for the demonstration today. The icons here show you where your data is kept. The full green circle means your files are located on your actual hard drive and will take up space. If space is named the game for you, you can keep them totally cloud, take up no space on your actual local machine. So let's take a look and see what this is going to look like in our file explorer. As you can see, I have my personal OneDrive, which we're going to jump right into OneDrive for Business today. I have no files in my OneDrive right now, so let's see how easy it is to actually sync a file up to the cloud here. So I'm going to go ahead and make a test document and save that to my desktop. And you can drag and drop it, or you can copy and paste it, whichever you prefer here. As you can see, the status shows that it's syncing up to the cloud. There we go. Let's make sure there's actually data in there as well. And I'm going to access my OneDrive web app here at portal.office.com. So as you can see, the splash page we're all used to, got all of our web apps here. So let's take a look at OneDrive here and see if that document that I placed in my OneDrive container on my desktop shows in the cloud here. And there's my test document. Let's see what's inside here. There we go, shows test. I'm gonna go ahead and try to edit this here. And just say that I modified it online to get rid of any confusion we may have here while we're looking at the collaboration and the syncing abilities here of OneDrive. So theoretically, that should be reflecting, should say test modified online on my local machine here in my OneDrive container here. So just double checking in the actual web app here, making sure that reflects correctly, which it does. Let's open up File Explorer, test modify online. As you can see, a seamless, almost instantaneous sync of changes here. And that's just the bare minimum right there. That's using Notepad. Imagine when you start getting into spreadsheets, Word documents, and things like that. I'm actually going to go ahead and share this out to my Christopher.Tenney address so I can show you what the actual sharing experience is going to look like for users here. And I'll show you what it's going to look like for the recipient too, actually opening up that shared link for ourselves here. I'm going to send that right now. Give myself a little bit of time to actually receive that in my inbox here. And we're going to talk a little bit about the features available when you share and what you can do to manage access control. So I sent that as a link that anybody can open up pretty much. Depending on your organization, you can have it set with anybody with a link can actually access that document. I don't recommend that. That's anonymous access, which means if you accidentally send something out that you shouldn't have sent, that data is out there. Anybody with that link, whoever you sent that to, can share it out as well. People within Saltmarsh, Cleveland and Gun can open that. So as long as they're a member of the tenant and the domain, they have that domain name, they can open that document as well. And also people with existing access. That sounds a little bit redundant, but with Microsoft 365, it actually allows for guest access. So you can invite external users to your tenancy. They'll be given a Saltmarsh, Cleveland and Gun or your domain name's actual login address for your tenancy, and they'll be a guest user. So they can access some of these documents, and that allows you to manage access to these users in a way that wasn't previously available with other sharing solutions out there. As you can see, taking a look here at Manage Access, it shows that it's shared with myself. I'm gonna go ahead and take a look at it here. This is what the recipient's gonna see in their mailbox. So remote user shared a file with you. Let's go ahead and take a look at that and see what this is gonna look like when I open up this file. Sharing link validation. So sign into my saltmarshcpa.com address and we'll give you access immediately. That's how we do the identity verification there. You have to sign into that address that was shared with right there, proving you are who you are. So what we're going to do is take a look here, test modify online. That is what was shared with me here. Keep in mind, when I shared that out, I allowed editing. So I'm going to go ahead and take a quick look here. I'm going to make a couple modifications. Keep in mind, I'm in a totally different account from which I shared this. If this was an external user, this would behave the same exact way. I'm going to go ahead and save that. And theoretically, those changes should be pretty much reflected across the board for whoever has access to that document, whether it be client side in the web app, whatever it may be here. So let's go and take a look here. I'm going to look in the web app here of my remote user. And there it is. The person I shared that with made a modification on their machine, totally separate. It reflects across the board. I'm going to check my client side on my local machine, sync down to my local machine already, instantaneously changes here. So this kind of gets the gears moving a little bit, how you can see how these collaboration tools can be used pretty powerfully, especially with like spreadsheets and things like that. If you have a proposal you need to write, you can have somebody following up behind you, adding comments and whatnot. So I think Chris has been overstepping his boundaries a little bit. I'm going to remove his access here. So I'm going to go ahead and yank access there from Chris. I'm no longer sharing that. Let's see what Chris is going to see when he tries to open up that document that I shared with him previously. So no longer available. Immediately restricted access across the board for him there. If this was an error, I can reach out to the administrator and say, hey, I'm supposed to have access to this, and you can share it back out just as easy as it was before. This is perfect for if you accidentally share something out that you shouldn't have shared, you can yank that access pretty quickly there. Now, what happens if Chris went in there and made some changes? Chris was disgruntled and he started deleting stuff and changing information on what if I started changing information that was proprietary, I started deleting things like that, modifying that actual document a little bit here. So let's go and take a look at it. No longer with SharePoint and OneDrive are your files just sitting in a folder someplace. There's actually versioning history that's attached to these files that you can restore to. So like I said, we're talking a little bit now about business continuity and disaster recovery. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna restore that back to its original version here. That should just show test now, as it does. So if somebody makes some changes that you didn't want, you can restore a previous file version there, which is huge. A great thing about that too is when there's ransomware involved here, there's already antivirus baked into OneDrive and SharePoint. OneDrive is not going to sync a file that is infected up to the cloud. If for whatever reason it syncs a file that is corrupted, or if everything got corrupted for whatever reason, it's synced up and all your data is lost, you can actually roll your entire OneDrive back up to 14 days. So that's huge in the business continuity and disaster recovery world right there. And it's fairly simple to do as well. So as you see, it's a pretty robust tool there for personal sharing of files and whatnot here. So let's go ahead and continue on here. We're going to talk a little bit about SharePoint. Like I said, we're gonna be flying 3,000 feet over this here. Then we're not going to get in the weeds with SharePoint. I can set out a whole presentation every single day for 2 weeks, and we'll still be just scratching the surface here. It's a hugely immersive tool that allows for pretty much seamless integration across the board. Think about it as your organization's OneDrive container. So what we want to do here is focus on collaboration between all users of the organization, even invite external users out there. And you'll see a little bit of the actual interface is actually very much like a website, but also some functionality in there that's not available with the website. And also it allows admins to control the security. It allows you to really communicate across your team very simply here. It's that centralized file storage as well. So no longer is your data going to be sitting on a single server someplace that if it fails over, you're pretty much out of luck. This stuff is replicated across the cloud, across multiple servers, failovers. So getting into that business continuity, disaster recovery realm again there. And also we want to increase collaboration here, which is what this is made for. So let's go and take a look here at SharePoint and what it has to offer. Just a quick video here. So as you can see, we have our OneDrive added to the File Explorer already. There's my test document that I had previously. Now let's go and take a look at SharePoint. It's going to be located at the same place your OneDrive was. You're going to log in at portal.office.com. And look for your SharePoint icon on the splash page here. So you can have multiple sites within your SharePoint here. There's our SharePoint team site. That's going to come as the root team site that has to be automatically created for every organization using SharePoint. Now I created this as a actual team site. So that in turn went and created my remote workers team in Teams as well. And also it created my OneNote notebook and everything. So we'll take a look a little bit here at the actual interface, and we'll talk about what's included with an actual SharePoint site. You can add multiple members here, and depending on your organization's stance on external access, you can also add external users there too. Also included is a document library. So it shows what you can actually load up to the cloud here that all members have access to. The great thing about this too is you can break that inheritance. So if you want them to have access to a certain set of folders, but not some files within those actual folders, break the inheritance and you can actually have custom permissions in there. Gets a little bit muddy if you're not sure with what you're doing, but you can always create test team sites and things like that. So I don't want to have to log into SharePoint or portal.office.com every single time I want to access my data. So I'm going to go ahead and sync this down to my local file explorer here. As you can see, it's going to be listed very similarly to the actual OneDrive client here, denoted by the little two towers there. So let's go and expand that out and drill down into that folder hierarchy there. So there's everything that we have available in the cloud right now. So reflects across the board pretty seamlessly. The big difference between this and OneDrive, they are very similar, and it actually uses the OneDrive sync client to upload those documents to the cloud. But with the SharePoint, it's a little bit more based, access control is more based on your actual role rather than the discretion of the actual data owner. So it gives admins a little bit more capability to determine how the actual data is going to be disseminated, who has access. We can even go as far as they can request access through SharePoint. It sends me an email and I have to grant access manually based on my determination. And it's at my discretion. So it really gives you a lot of security over data, how it's shared, who has access as well. Also, you can see that OneNote that we took a look at in our Teams video there is also available in SharePoint here. So there's some of that collaboration and integration that we were talking about here. So what I'm changing here is actually reflecting in the Teams if I actually had that open up in Teams right now. So as you can see, external users, you got team members working on a common task here. The amount of collaboration is really endless. And what I'm showing you here is just very basic, bare minimum. And really, I really hope in the future we can release some more training videos here so that we can get into the real nitty gritty with it and show you the full capabilities and actually design a team site with some graphics and things like that that'll look really cool and be really a really great way for to bring new customers in and external users and just be a great experience across the board for everybody here. So let's take a look at site contents here. This is going to show everything that's actually in the actual SharePoint site here in that team site. So of course we got our document library. There's 4 items, basically 4 empty folders. Site pages, you can add multiple pages there. You can even put a discussion board on there, a weather widget, whatever you prefer there. I actually created a SharePoint calendar here. So imagine you're an external user. You're somebody that just wants some information about the organization. I share out an anonymous link to our SharePoint site. You can pop on here and you can take a look and see what times are available for you to give us a call and see if we're an organization that you would like to use as an accounting solution or something along those lines there. Great thing about this too is I'm going to go ahead and say I want this available in my local Outlook app as well. So I'm going to go ahead and connect that to my Outlook here, automatically launch Outlook for me. Simple as that, it gets added automatically. Let me go ahead and get rid of some of these shared calendars here and get rid of my personal calendar so we can just show my actual remote workers group calendar here that's synced with my actual Outlook client here. So there's the actual event that was synced up in the SharePoint Online. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to make an event in my local Outlook client here, and we're going to take a look and see how that syncs up to the cloud here. And keep in mind that external users will be able to see this as well. So it's going to really allow you to reach out and touch external users, possible customers, external consultants, tap all these unused resources and manage their access during and after. So you're really going to be able to rely on this tool to really allow you to collaborate across the board pretty seamlessly. Do a quick refresh here and my item should appear. And there's my test item right there. That was made in my Outlook client. It's reflecting immediately in the cloud. If I was an external user, I can log in to see that. As an internal user, remember, I can see that as well. And I can say, hey, Chris is making some test events on the 29th here. So it's a great tool to have in your back pocket there. It really is. And the navigation is pretty seamless as well, self-explanatory. We can take a look at the actual conversations here. This is going to show our remote workers mailbox. So you actually have, when you create a SharePoint team site, you're going to get your Microsoft Teams, you're going to get your remote workers mailbox, you're going to get your actual document library up in SharePoint. Great thing too is when I create those channels in Teams, those sync up and create additional calendar or containers in SharePoint Online. So actually, what I'm placing in Teams in those containers is going to reflect in SharePoint Online. So if I'm a member of that team, if I put something in the Teams chat, file in the Teams chat, in the Tampa channel, that's going to show in that container in SharePoint Online there. As you see, the syncing and the integration here is what really makes this a useful tool. Great thing about these Office 365 groups that get created as well, it allows you to really manage how much integration you want to have with it. So it allows the end user to configure what works for them. So I don't want to follow it in my inbox here. I don't want to get blown up by emails by everything sent to the actual remote workers mailbox there. So I'm not going to follow that. If I were, it would show up in my inbox and that Office 365 group that shows up in the actual mailbox there at the bottom of your Outlook automatically. So let's go ahead and talk about putting these pieces together here. What we have available, so we talked about SharePoint, we talked about OneDrive, we talked about Teams very briefly here. And it's really about using the tools at your disposal. Keep in mind, these things are already readily available for most of the folks that have a mailbox in the Office 365 apps. It's already ready available. It's just waiting for you to configure it and reach out to your IT team and say, hey, I think this is a good tool for us to use. No matter what extent that you have it, even if it's just a simple team site for you to use and you can give it out to your clients. It's a great tool to get your feet wet with, and it's just going to get better and better. And you can really allow for an enhanced collaboration while working remotely here. It's very difficult. We've taken out the social aspect of our work life here over the past 45 days, and it's difficult for us to adjust, but this allows us to work as though we're all around the same board table here. And really what we want to try to do is transition to that remote work environment, and let's hit the ground running when we come back into the office. And that goes into the time management and the strategies. Let's not try to be burnout as soon as we get back in the office here. So let's do what we can to make this a little bit more normal for us until we do get back to things business as usual here, of course. And also let's offset the costs. All this stuff that we're putting in place here, it doesn't require any additional hardware. It doesn't require an actual SharePoint technician. It doesn't require a Teams technician. It's pretty much used across the board. It's consistent too. What you're looking at is what another person's going to look at, is what somebody in Washington, D.C. is going to look at. Is the same thing a person in California is going to be seeing as well. So it's consistent across the board. So that helps out that end user ease of use here. So we're going to go ahead and watch a quick video of putting all these tools together here for us. So let's go see what we have available here. So I created just a false task for my remote user and Chris here to do. Looks like we got a client list of about 14 clients that we need to finish here. I can foresee in the future that client list is going to be getting a little bit bigger. It's probably going to outgrow the remote user and Chris there. So I think I'm going to place that in SharePoint just in case more users come into that and start working on that with us here. So instead of dragging and dropping, I'm going to go ahead and just copy that into the actual Tampa folder there for SharePoint. And I think it'd probably be a good idea to let Chris know that we got another task here to work on some clients here, and tell him where I put that as well. So I'm gonna go and hit him up in Teams a little bit. And also I think it'd probably be a good idea that I place this in the Teams channel, the Tampa channel here, just in case more folks from Tampa decide to start working on this with me too here. So let's go and take a look at that here. Open up my Tampa channel. As you can see, it looks like Chris sent an email to the remote workers group here. I'm going to go ahead and upload that document. I'm going to browse from Teams and channels here. There's that client list that I uploaded to SharePoint. And on the back end there, that client list is actually a link to our online SharePoint here, so you can access that. Anybody in the channel is going to have access to that, so they're going to be able to work on that and collaborate with us in real time. So I'm going to go ahead and open up the mailbox here and take a look and see what Chris had to say. All right, looks like he wants to meet about that client list tomorrow. I'm gonna go ahead and make a meeting for us here. I'm gonna open up the associated calendar with our Office 365 group. And I think I'll make that a Teams meeting actually here. So as you can see, it's interfacing a little bit with Outlook, Teams, our Office 365 group. We've already rolled SharePoint into it as well. I'm gonna go ahead and invite Chris here. Set the time up. I'm going to add that to my own personal calendar as well, so I can see that in my personal Outlook calendar so I don't forget. So that's shown in my personal Outlook calendar. That's going to show in Teams, and that's also shown in the Remote Workers Office 365 group calendar as well. We'll take a look at my personal calendar. There's that meeting I just created. There we go. Showing pretty much consistently across the board here. Let's go and take a look at that Remote Workers group again here. And let's go and take a look here. I'm going to use the SharePoint link in my actual Outlook client here to redirect me to SharePoint here. And I believe I placed that in the Tampa folder. So let's go ahead and take a look here and see if Chris has finished up any of these clients at all. See what he has uploaded here. And that should be uploading in real time here. So let's see what kind of progress he's made. Now, this is the Excel spreadsheet that I've loaded into the SharePoint container from my desktop here. It doesn't look like Chris has made any changes to the document just yet. I'm gonna go ahead and start working on client number 3 and let him know that I finished on yesterday's date. So I'm gonna go ahead and pop that in there right there. Looks like Chris just knocked out 3 there. Pretty easy. I'm gonna go ahead, knock out another client real quickly here. Looks like Chris is working on one at the same time there. As you can see, this allows for that real-time collaboration there. So this can be a powerful tool. It's as powerful as you want to make it. The Microsoft white pages say you can have up to 75 people. That's 75 collaborating on a single document at one time. How well that works, I probably wouldn't try it, but it should work. So as you can see there, it's a pretty powerful tool. Let's take a look here and see if those changes actually sync down to the actual client side here. All right, so I'm actually in my Excel application here. So I'm not on the web app any longer. I'm on my local machine here, and it looks like those changes have already been synced down. And I can actually still see Chris is actually working on a document in real time. So it looks like he's working on cell number 12 right now. And any changes that I made are going to be reflected across his application as well, whether it be the cloud app or his actual local Excel client there. So we've checked online there. We checked that SharePoint Online using the web app. We checked on our actual client side using the Excel application that's downloaded with the Office suite. Let's now check out the Teams file that I uploaded to the Tampa channel here and see how that looks. Ideally, that should be reflecting as well. Let's take a look and see how that's looking here for us. Replicated across the board seamlessly there, instantaneously. As you can see, it looks like Chris and I are working on the same exact cell at the same time. And this is actually a tool that we use pretty frequently here in the Saltmarsh IT department. When we get a task that has all the technicians rolled into it, we place this in the Teams channel here, and we can see each other collaborating in real time, seeing us actually work on tasks and knock this out. It works really well for machine builds and things like that. But as you can see, if this was a real client list with dates finished and things like that, and outreach and whatnot, this would be a very valuable tool for you to use here. And you can include pretty much the entire department, up to 75 people. Like I said, I probably wouldn't try it with 75 people, but it's going to work seamlessly. Definitely up to at least half of that. It's a great tool to use, shows across the board for everybody. And let's take a look here one more time. Let's make sure that those actually reflect in my client side here on my local machine in my Excel app here. So as you can see, spitting image of what was just placed in Teams there. Seamless collaboration for end users, easy administration for IT professionals, and it's pretty much readily available. This is all cloud-based click-to-run software, so you don't have to actually rely on some actual hardware or anything like that. A high level of redundancy and availability for us as well. So let's go ahead and keep on moving on here. I believe that's the end of the videos for us today. So let's go ahead and keep on chugging along here. And we're actually going to wrap up the presentation today on the security challenges of working remotely here. And there are definitely many of them. Unfortunately, being thrust into this remote work environment has really created a large vulnerability that cyber criminals, they recognize that and they realize they can make money off of it. So let's go ahead and talk about a couple of the most frequent attacks here and some of the most common exploits. So big reason that we're so vulnerable when we're working from home, not only are we off balance now working from home, especially in the course of a week, we change our total work model or business model here. A lot of it's unprotected Wi-Fi networks. What does that mean? That doesn't mean that you don't have a password on your Wi-Fi network at home. That means you're using old legacy deprecated protocols on your actual wireless router. You're using default passwords that come pre-configured on the actual device here. All things that hackers look to take advantage of. A lot of times it's going to be a target of opportunity for these folks. It's going to be, what's the easiest route for me to exploit somebody and get what I need to further my agenda here? We've come to the point in technology that it's much more likely that the end user is going to be actually exploited rather than the technology is. And we'll talk a little bit about that here as well. Another big issue we have is infected personal machines. Many organizations that weren't ready to make that pivot to a remote work environment, they're relying on their end users to use their personal machines at home to access business resources. That's extremely dangerous. We don't know what's on your machine. We don't know what client-side virus protection you have on there. And now you're accessing our resources. You're trying to get on our network and whatnot. It's possible you can cause a pretty widespread infection there. One way that we have around that, Saltmarsh actually implements conditional access and Intune. So if your machine doesn't meet a predetermined set of conditions, we cannot let you on that network. You can't actually get access to those resources. You have to rely on the web app, or you have to get your machine up to snuff before you can actually start using those resources. Lack of containerization. This is actually a big one here. A lot of folks using those personal machines at home now, all their personal data is totally intermingled with company data now. So what happens if an end user all of a sudden leaves the organization while we're in the middle of this lockdown, or they end up getting terminated? How do we yank that company data from their machines? How do we make sure they don't disclose that inadvertently or even purposely? Intune allows you to actually pull the company data from mobile devices as well. And the big one right here is a relaxed security posture. Working from home, you're kind of in that you're in that home kind of mentality there. So, and everybody's a little bit curious. We've all clicked on things that we probably shouldn't have. So without that in-house IT running around, you don't have your information officer running around, breathing down your back. It's easy to kind of get lost in it. You're going to end up getting yourself infected sometimes. And these are all things that they're looking to exploit, and they know it's going to happen. And it's very unfortunate, but the lockdown has presented a very, very, very large opportunity for these criminals to take advantage of. So some of the most common attacks here, we're going to talk about social engineering. That's probably the biggest one right now. Phishing and spoofing. What are those two? Have they ever happened to me? I can tell you they have, even if you don't realize it. We see these frequently. Our end users do a fantastic job of letting us know if something is not right with an email. And as IT professionals, we can track that mail down, make sure the person that sent that is actually who they say they are. So what is phishing? They're actually phishing for credentials. They're phishing for information. And there's even a more directed type of phishing, spear phishing, where it's going to be directed at a single individual here. What are they looking to do? Basically, they're looking to get your credentials to your bank account. They're looking to get credentials to your email account. What they'll do with that email account is if they phish the accountant, they can go ahead and reach out to end users and say, hey, I'm going to send X amount of money here. Or if they phish and get the credentials for the CEO, they pretty much have untethered access and control over the rest of the employees here. So what they can do, a lot of times what you'll see is a CEO's email has been compromised, and what they'll do is they'll ask for iTunes gift cards or things like that, or last minute say, hey, change the actual bank deposit to this account instead here. And a lot of people do that. And a lot of times that money is gone. And spoofing, what is spoofing? So spoofing is actually sending mail disguised as another person. And depending on how keen your eye is, it's very difficult to detect. It's almost impossible to detect on a mobile device. What happens is they will spoof the display name. So if somebody sent a message as Christopher Tenney with a display name, you might look after that in your local Outlook client on your machine, and you might see a yahoo.com address. So anything that you think you're sending back to me is actually going to that other address there. On a mobile device, that's a different story. It shows only the display name. It's very difficult to pick up on. There are things that you can do to kind of mitigate this here. Your IT has a huge part playing a role in that as well. We do a great job of stopping these attacks in their tracks, but it's just the nature of the game. Some of this stuff is going to come through. Spam filters can't pick up on things that are just plain text or don't have anything fishy in them. And the spoofing, there's some records that you can put in place there that disallow that as well. But really what you want to look out for is anything that's out of the ordinary. Why is the CEO asking me to go buy some iTunes gift cards? He's never asked me that before. A lot of these attackers are foreign. So look for typos, look for really weird verbiage, and just if it doesn't flow right, it's probably not right. Worst part that you can do is reach out to them and see if it's legit. And probably the best thing that you can do is just send that down to your IT department. Let us take a look at it. We can look at that back-end information. We can track it from the time that it came in the server. We can take a look at the headers on it, see all the bounces it made. When we tell you with definitely where that came from, if it's legit or not. Another big one here is malware infection. This a lot of times leads to the actual phishing. They can put a actual keylogger on your machine. They can watch your camera. So you got to be very careful with what you're clicking. And this is especially prevalent on personal machines here. And it's because you'll take liberties on your personal machine that you likely wouldn't take on your actual work machine. Now that we're working on remote, and a lot of folks that weren't prepared to make that pivot to remote are using their personal machines as their business devices, it's a pretty big security risk for our IT departments here. And finally, ransomware. What is ransomware? Basically, somebody's going to put some software on your machine that's going to lock your machine up and encrypt all of its data and demand you to pay money to actually get that decrypted data. That's kind of been stopped in its tracks now that IT's been able to find some capable backups. Instead of paying money to these criminals, let's just go ahead and restore from a backup and work off of that. They've also kind of pivoted and negated that. So no longer is it pay me money to get your data back. It's pay me money or I'm going to show your data to the world. So if you're a financial advisor and you have people's personally identifiable information, if you're a hospital and you have HIPAA information, you're looking at some legal issues now and the legal disclosure information there. So it's horrible. And they really don't care who they look at, who they're attacking. What they see is just a computer screen. To them, it's a victimless crime. So it doesn't matter whose money you're taking pockets out of. So we got to be very conscientious of who we're actually letting into our machines here. And let's go ahead and wrap it up here, folks. So conclusion, let's use the tools already at our disposal here. What's available with our Microsoft Office suite that we don't already have implemented? What can we do to help cut down on these costs here? Implement a remote environment is a hugely expensive endeavor, not only in the hardware and the software required, but the upkeep and the patching and the expertise and the technicians that you have to hire. If you have to make that change extremely quickly, use what's available cloud-based right now to help cut down on some of those costs right there. Implement those cloud technologies for versatility and secure access. Everything that you share in OneDrive and SharePoint is going to be locked down pretty tightly. So you can also implement multi-factor authentication, two-factor authentication, conditional access, only allow users to access these documents and files in the cloud when they're connecting from a certain IP. If they don't connect from a certain IP, force them to use two-factor authentication. This can all be pretty easily configured from that centralized administration and security portal within Office 365. The big one here is let's empower our team with technology to remain productive and connected. We're all going to come out of this a little bit differently here, but there's absolutely no reason that we shouldn't be able to come out of this stronger in the aspect that we got some new technology. We can be hybrid in the future here. We're going to be a little bit more dynamic and fluid and able to adjust here. This may even allow some folks to adopt a remote work environment, partially for some of their employees. Some of your employees work remotely sometimes now. So there can be some good coming from it here. It's difficult for everybody, but there are tools available that we can use to help lessen that burden a little bit. The big one too that we want to end on is remain aware of cyber criminals and threats here. There's nothing that's really going to stop them aside from just knowing the signs, and it's going to be a constantly changing game. No one solution is going to constantly work or work in the same instances. So the big thing is really be, if you're an end user, know the signs that you're being attacked and alert your IT department that something's going on. If you're an IT professional, make sure you put those proper controls in place and maintain those controls and try to stay ahead of the curve there a little bit. So folks, that's about the gist of it there. We'll be coming up to some questions and answers here, but first, I'd really like to direct everybody to take a look at our COVID-19 resources. You can visit saltmarshcpa.com/COVID-19. You can sign up to receive our emails here. Our team has done a phenomenal job here. We stayed ahead of the curve. It really allowed us to kind of pivot into that remote work environment, kind of seeing what was coming ahead here before it was dictated by the government that we had to go remote here. So it allowed us to kind of really weather it a little bit better than some folks have. So definitely subscribe to that and get some really great information. And of course, join us again next week, May the 7th, how COVID-19 has impacted retirement planning. Regardless where you're at in your life, regardless where you're at in your actual career, there's going to be some great information here for you as well. So definitely jump on saltmarshcpa.com/seminars. And of course, any questions can always be directed at me at Christopher.Tenney@saltmarshcpa.com. And we're going to go ahead and open up the discussion here right now for a few questions that were posed by some of the attendees here.
All right, awesome. Okay. Thank you so much, Chris. Very, very informative. A lot of helpful tools that you walked us through today. So we appreciate that. We have opened up our chat at this point for questions. It looks like we have received one. We'll give folks just a couple more minutes to put their questions in the chat, and we'll address them together right now. We have one question here from Lee Bell. Why Teams versus Zoom? We hear this a lot. I think there's several different platforms out there, and we see Zoom, obviously one of the common ones. So can you talk us through maybe some of the pros and cons for maybe why Teams may be a better fit? I think you've touched on some of those. But
absolutely. Thank you for that question. That's a very good question. The big one that comes to mind for me, being a security practitioner, is definitely the recent security threats that Zoom has had. Also, what other applications can we name that Zoom has? When we come to Microsoft Teams, we can name Microsoft Word, Excel, SharePoint, OneDrive. What else can we collaborate with within Zoom that's going to allow you to configure it in one spot? So I think the biggest thing that Teams has over Zoom is one, the security, and also the integration that's available for all the other apps as well. And also, pretty much anybody that you're going to go look at is going to have Office 365 as their solution. There's a very high majority of small, medium businesses and even enterprise businesses, even government licensing is available. So It's just far more widespread, and the solution's already available for you. You might as well take advantage of it. As you can see, just through some of the demonstration there, all the capabilities are there that Zoom offers. I don't think there's any other reason to go chasing down another solution when we have one that's readily available.
Perfect. We have one more. This is a popular question for us here at Saltmarsh. Is there a way to turn off the joining and exiting announcements when scheduling a Teams meeting through Outlook? The answer is yes. We did it for this and it worked. Are you able to walk us through that really quickly? Is that something we can do?
Jump through here.
And while Chris is getting that up, I'll go ahead and just, make certain that everybody knows we understand that some of you maybe had a difficult time viewing some of the fine print in the videos that Chris walked us through. This was sort of a unique setup in order to ensure we could have the screen sharing and the Teams demonstration in one. So we appreciate your understanding. We will ensure that those videos are included in your follow-up materials, so you'll be able to view those obviously much clearer. So we apologize for that.
Hang tight, folks. I'm going to sign into my actual test account for Teams here. So give me 1 second while I unplug and get plugged back in.
And if there are any other questions, it looks like we've got some of our Saltmarsh folks on the line. I know we've been using Teams daily, really constantly. And I'll just give a quick plug for our IT team. They've been incredible in really transitioning us to this environment. It was a move that we were a little hesitant about on the front end, of course, like many of you, I'm sure, but they have really carried us through this and made it such a smooth experience. And so any way that our folks can try to help your business do the same, of course, they'd be happy to do that, and they're great. So we appreciate you guys.
Almost there, folks.
We've got another question coming from Kristen Stognew. This is another good one. And from what we understand, Teams is of course rolling out many new enhancements in response to this increased virtual environment that we're all working in. They've made changes that we've seen. Maybe we can touch on some of those enhancements. Do you guys get advance notice on those at all, or?
Really, it depends on which, the way Microsoft rolls out these enhancements is based on your release channel. So you can actually join the release channel. They have an experimental channel, then they have a semi, then a quarterly as well. And it depends on which channel you're in, depending if you're a Microsoft partner as well, how early you actually get these releases. And they kind of use that as a beta testing. So they can kind of get some feedback there as well prior to doing a large rollout for everybody. So they are making some definite enhancements there. As you can see, one of the ones that we just took advantage of was the custom backgrounds in the background there. They realize everybody's going virtual right now, and they're trying to find a way to make it as enjoyable and useful for everybody here. So it's just one of those quick, fun, little quirky things there. And also the integration is, I don't think anybody actually uses the integration 100%. So you really can be placing some of your documents in Teams and things like that. And it's just going to get better and better. This is a very, very, very new product. The product that's meant to replace hasn't even been totally phased out yet, which is Skype for Business. So this has got a lot of life left on it. It's got a lot of legs. So it's just going to get better as we continue going on here.
And I'll just say too, while we're getting this screen share up, is that a lot of the ways that Chris shared we can use this tool is around productivity, some of our day-to-day work. But one of the screens that he shared is just an internal channel that we've developed for our team to stay connected during this time, and we share lighthearted pictures and just fun things. We've done some themed weeks, and I don't know how that would have gone off if we didn't have this technology in place. I mean, it has really been a game changer for us in that respect. And so there's definitely lots of ways that you can leverage this technology, even from a cultural standpoint, to really make certain that your team members do feel that personal connection with each other during this time, even from a non-professional or business oriented standpoint. So really a lot that you can do with this tool.
I think we had another question on the actual etiquette for Teams meetings and virtual meetings here, which is totally understandable as well. A lot of it's going to be, we'll talk about making sure that you actually do turn off those notifications for users coming into the meeting here, especially if you're the presenter. You really want to make sure that when you do get into these meetings here, if you're presenting a PowerPoint or presenting for yourself here, what you want to do is make sure that those announcements are turned off. They can be kind of jarring. It's a really synthetic voice, and it can kind of throw you off your actual flow here a little bit and really get you out of the immersion here. One of the things that they're trying to do is actually make it so that when you're doing these meetings, you're trying to get that immersion that you would have as if you were sitting around a conference room table or something like that. And when you got a notification coming in, it gets you out of there a little bit, gets you off your flow. Also, you want to be very conscientious as to what you're actually broadcasting on your screen there. Working from home allows you a lot of liberties that you might not have at home there, or at the office there. So I guess in short, what I'm trying to say is be very conscientious of what you're wearing, and also, give me a second. Give me one moment, guys. Trying to get these meeting options up so I can show you how to turn off those notifications here. Well, there's definitely a way that we can turn off these notifications here, and I'll go ahead and get that out to y'all. Unfortunately, I'm having a couple of technical difficulties here, but we'll definitely get that out to you, step-by-step options here. That's going to be one of the main things that we want to focus on there, especially with the etiquette and everything, is make sure that those notifications are off. Be very conscious of what you're actually broadcasting on the screen. If there's distractions in the background, blur that background for yourself. And also don't be hot mic'd up. So during a meeting, make sure your microphone's off. When you're all done here, don't take the meeting to the bathroom with you or anything like that. So make sure when the meeting's done, totally leave. And that's pretty much going to be it. And of course, the same etiquette that you would have during a actual meeting in person there. And like I said, we'll get the actual path out to everybody. That's going to allow for us to create those custom backgrounds. And also we'll go ahead and get the instructions on how to get into those meeting details to turn off those notifications for us as well.
Alrighty. Well, that wraps up our session for the day. Thank you all again for joining us. As Chris shared earlier, this is part of our weekly series. We are trying to deliver as much useful information to you all in this new environment as possible. So next week, we're going to be talking a little bit about investments. We'll have our Saltmarsh financial advisors join us to tell us what they're seeing in that space. We hope you can join us. You can visit our website for information there. We hope you have a great day, and we'll see you again soon.
Thank you,
Thanks,
everybody.
everyone.